And our featured guest tonight is Kyle Packer. I've known Kyle for several years now, and he is one of the most amazing people I have ever met in my lifetime. And you're going to have a blast listening to his stories tonight. I think as educators, I think it's extremely relevant, the discussion that we're going to be having tonight, especially for those of you that have, children with handicaps in your classroom, or, struggling with different issues, whether it's, self-confidence or a variety of other things. I think spending an evening with Kyle, you're going to get a chance to listen to and talk to, a man who's really dealt with this firsthand every day of his life, and he is a great ambassador for just people and education. So I'm going to turn this over to Kyle here in just a little bit, but if anybody has questions as they hop on, please feel free to raise your hand, and you can do that by clicking the little hand button here, or you can also type questions down into the chat area, and please feel free to ask. We'd like to make these as interactive as possible. The webinars will also be available for download off of our website at nstoy.org. So Kyle, thanks for being our guest tonight, and I know one of the things when you and I talk in the past, and we've been to several events together, you usually like right out of the box to kind of talk about cerebral palsy and just kind of the impact it's had on your life a little bit. So I just kind of want to ask you a couple of questions just about CP. How did that affect your life early on as a kid?
Well, it almost affected it right out of the gate, because back then, my parents didn't know a lot about it. So, and back then, it was okay to go ahead and put individuals like myself into institution and let them handle it there. But in my case, I got lucky. My parents, like I said, didn't know a lot about it, but they were eager to keep me in the family and learn as we got older, and here I am.
Well, and I think that's really a powerful piece for families to really look at the whole child and, really spend quality time getting to know situations as they come up. And, but you had that love and bond as a family that was there. And this is, of course, all pre-internet, so you didn't have all the researches out there, and families didn't have a place to go. But, as educators, we have every year a brand new batch of kids come in, and I think, every teacher that I know across the United States cares passionately about the kids. You're talking about back in that day and age then, things were a little bit different, and educators also didn't have all of that information available. And so you said there was a decision being made in your school as, well, what do we do with Kyle? And you were lucky you had, I believe she's your first grade teacher?
Yes.
Mrs. Lufer?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
What impact did she have on your life?
Well, again, she took the ball and ran with it, because she saw that I had the smarts to do the work, but I needed more time to complete it. So she went to the principal and fought for me. So I stayed in her class, but I got the regular curriculum that any regular student, and I had more time to work on it with her.
Okay, so she was a real blessing, and she opened a lot of doors for you.
Oh yeah.
And that's something I really think as educators today, we've really got to look at that child first and really sit down. And children are very complex.
They are.
And you've got to sit down and really, work the puzzle and figure out, how things, can help the child, what's a problem for the child. But I think Mrs. Lufer is an example for a lot of us as to how, we should be looking and working with our teachers or our kids today. Now, I know that she was a big impact on you, but I remember interviewing you once, and you talked about, as a child, the difficulties it was just to go out and play and to be a normal kid. And even to the point once you said that, parents were afraid to let their kids play with you because they thought they would catch cerebral palsy. And it was, again, the time and just the ignorance of the condition and things like that. But, I mean, what impact did that have on you as a kid, where you'd see other kids out playing ball and doing things? And I know you love athletics and stuff. So, how did that impact you? And then two, how did you start to overcome those stigmas that cerebral palsy attached to you?
Well, I guess I had a younger brother who played baseball and did the thing that I couldn't do, so I could go and watch him. And so he and I were good friends, and his friends became my friends. So, that helped. But when I went out to play by myself and with the neighbor kids, if they didn't know me, they didn't come around. Only the ones that knew me and the family, would come around. But, at the time, I didn't think much of it until, I heard them say, oh, well, I had a couple of friends say, well, I couldn't play with you because my mom thought I'd catch what you had. And, CP is man, an accident. I can't even say it. An accident at birth.
Yes,
is what it is. And in my case, oxygen got cut off from the brain.
Right.
And I didn't know how long and how severe until I started growing up. And then, they could tell what was going to be affected.
Well, I look at this picture of you here, and, could you explain a little bit what's happened? Because I know we've got this young man who is struggling with, and all kids do at this age. You got, self-confidence, junior high age where, you're still trying to grow into your body, but you've got the added piece of trying to make friends and can't get out and motor around and stuff. But the thing that I've always loved about you is you've had this fire inside of you that just burns. And so I think this is a prime example. What are you doing in this picture?
I'm selling Christmas cards to earn money for a BB gun.
A BB gun.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what we wanted to hear.
A daisy. Well,
a daisy red rifle.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just gotten permission that I was old enough to, and plus it was adding money to go out and buy Christmas for the family.
Okay.
And I did it for about 5 years. It was a great time.
So you were out, you were selling things, you were going to school. I want to fast forward a little bit, but you're in high school. You've got your whole future set out before you. But again, we still got situations in our nation's education system where you and I've talked where 80/80 stuff hadn't all been compliant and things. And so you're going to go to school. And where did you choose to go?
I had to go to ISU, Idaho State University.
So you're going to Idaho State University, and I want to show a picture here because it's going to kind of set the stage for where we're going next. I met Kyle, I don't know, it's probably been almost 10 years ago now, and he came to our school and spoke, and they had tables set out, and they had all these pictures of Mount Everest, and I've always been interested in climbing and different things like that. And I kept looking at these pictures and thought, my gosh, who is doing this stuff? And I saw Kyle sitting down at the end of the tables in his wheelchair, and I wasn't for sure what his story was until I found out his story was he had been climbing Everest. And it just totally blew me away because of the contrast between the wheelchair and the mountain climbing. My mind just wasn't registering right at that time. And boy, I tell you what, my journey with Kyle over the last few years has been eye-opening because he's really helped me see things for what they really are. And in this picture here, you're right up here in the back of the ship, and you're leading a whitewater trip down which river?
Snake.
So you're down the Snake River, but it didn't start like this.
No.
And so you were at Idaho State University. I'd like to talk just a little bit about what happened that opened your door, and I really think totally changed your life, because as I talked to you, this was this little boy. It was the chance for him to get out. And you know, I think for the educators that are on with us tonight and the ones that will listen after the show, it is so important for us to look at people and to be able to think about how we can open doors and how we can continue to work that puzzle, you know, to make all the pieces fit. So you're at Idaho State University. Tell us a little bit about your experience at Idaho State.
It wasn't real good.
It wasn't good.
No. The first 2 years were not good. I was on academic probation, ready to fuck out, and I felt okay because I really didn't want to be there.
You were okay if you flunked out?
Yeah, man. I didn't see life with me.
Why is that? Why didn't you see life with you in it?
Because I told all the way up that I would live at home, live with mom and dad, and I'm okay with it.
So the expectations that society set for you was you're in a wheelchair, mom and dad will take care of you, they'll keep you safe,
yep,
and you should just go along with that, and flunking is a part of that.
Yep.
Wow.
And I bought in on that bad point until one day I went to man, I can't talk now. A party, and I like the people I was with. They were fun, full of life, and they were passing around the piece of paper.
Okay.
To sign up to go do the snake the next day.
Now hold on a minute. You got a group of guys at a college party saying, hey, they're sending around a sheet of paper. Hey, Kyle, we want you to hop in a raft with us, go tooling down the Snake River, and yet society's told you all along, go home and stay with mom and dad and be safe. So what are you thinking?
I'm going to go home and be safe with mom and dad. But the paper came to me 3 times.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
So you didn't sign up the first time?
Oh, no.
Or the second time?
No, it took 3 times.
Okay. And why the third time? Why did you sign up?
Because it came with Tom.
Came with Tom. Who was Tom?
He was the guy who organized this group. And so he said, I'm not leaving until you sign it.
Oh, wow. And he's the head of, let me clarify this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Idaho State University had an outdoor adventure group called CW Hogs that really paired able-bodied and the disabled together to, one, give disabled people an opportunity to have real-world experiences that they would have never had before. But I think the other piece of the puzzle of the thing is that I love the most about this is the equation is that it also helped able-bodied people to see into the world of the disabled and what disabled people can do. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. So Tom Whitaker comes to you.
Yep.
And is he disabled or not?
Yes, he is.
So what was his disability?
He was coming home from the climbing and got in the head head-on collision.
Oh my.
And it took out both his legs and cut off half his foot.
Oh my. So he understood the disabled side firsthand.
Yeah, well, when he got rehab, he wanted to go back out in the outdoors.
Okay.
And nobody wanted to go with him because they thought he was a high risk.
But the difference in Tom and you is he had never been told in his life that it was wrong for him to do that. You're from the other side of the equation. It's always been wrong.
Yep.
So Tom Whitaker comes to you. He's basically forcing the pen in your hands. He's telling you he's not leaving until he signs. So you sign this paper, and you're thinking, what, I run away? I'm not ever going to see him again, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens?
Yeah, he don't know where I live. So I wasn't going to show up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I go home, I'm in bed, and the next morning a knock comes to my door, and it's my mom. She's telling me that there's a guy that talks weird as a
because he's British.
front door, yeah.
Okay.
And he told me you had signed up to go on a whitewater trip.
And your mom is, how's she handling this?
Not real well.
So Tom Whitaker shows up at your door in a van. They're all loaded.
Yep.
And he's telling Mom, her little baby, is going to be heading off on a whitewater trip, and all everybody's decided all this time is the safest place in the world for you is at home.
Yep.
And probably the last thing on her mind is Kyle's leaving to go on whitewater.
Right.
Now, I just saw a post on here that Michelle had posted on here. It sounds definitely like trust is an important factor in this, and so I want to get into this a little bit later on about how trust is an important situation is, because I know I've been with you on climbs and how big of a deal this is to put your life in somebody's hand. So, but you don't know this guy right now.
No.
And we're looking on here, it says Tom's great insistence, but why did you go?
I don't know. Well, because I knew the rest of the guys in the van, and they had sitting out there for a long time, and I didn't want to take their opportunity away. Mm-hmm. So I got dressed and got in the van, and all the way up, he talked to me. He told me what to expect, what to do, how to handle things, and so by the time I got to the river, I think I knew everything I needed to know, except I couldn't swim with the legs.
Which might be important. Now, this is how long of a trip?
Well, depending on the river flow, it could take anywhere from an hour and a half to 3 hours.
Okay, so you're out on, and what river are you on?
On the Snake.
You're on the Snake.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now is this the time when you get out there and you flip over? Okay,
no.
so this is a good experience for you.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, this is the very first time.
This is the very first time you go, and before we leave the river, I want to talk about, I believe it's the Colorado.
Yep.
Where, and the Colorado is one of the most dangerous rivers in the country.
Yep.
And so you go out on as an extended trip on the Colorado. You found out, my understanding is you really loved this after you got out.
Yep.
And what did you like about this? Because all you've been told is don't go. So why, now that you got the taste of it, are you going to go back?
It's something I can do, you know. And
I thought you said you couldn't do it.
Well, he opened my eyes and told me and showed me that if you want to do something bad enough, and there's always a way to do it.
Now that's a teacher's perspective. A great teacher's perspective, that he's opening your eyes to see what your future can really hold. That's an incredible story there. So let's go on to, so you guys do a lot of crazy things, and I want to get into some of the really ones that are off the charts here in a second, but I know there was a point in time when you went on the Colorado River that made you really rethink whether you were doing things the right way. So this is an extended trip. How long were you on the Colorado?
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yep.
On the Colorado.
Yep.
And once you get on, there's no getting off really, right?
Nope.
Okay, so tell them a little bit about your life-changing incident on the Colorado that really kind of gives you your mantra is fear is fun.
Well, it was day 7
Okay.
of the trip, and we were scheduled to hit Crystal Rapid. Crystal being one of the top. Yeah, it's
So day 7, you're getting ready to hit one of the top rapids on the river.
Yep.
Okay.
And I should have known something was up because they put me in a wetsuit, 2 life jackets, and booties that float, you know.
Yeah, anytime they bring the 2 life jackets out, you need to be worried.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was our turn to go, and right off the bat, we hit the first wave wrong. It got our raft turned sideways, and that's all I saw. The next thing I know, I'm looking up at the top of the raft, and I'm in water, and nowhere to go. I couldn't get my right hand to let go of the rope because
it's spastic. And
yeah, it had a hole, and I had to let go so I could get away from the boat. And I don't know to this day how I found the middle of the boat where the oarman sat. There was a good air pocket.
Mm-hmm.
But we found it, and I got myself in there, and I yelled out, telling them that I was okay. And so the oarman had gotten on top of the raft,
mm-hmm.
and then we had a kayaker that kept the raft
mm-hmm.
in the middle of the river,
mm-hmm.
so I wouldn't get along the rock,
mm-hmm.
and I had to go the next 3 rapids underneath the raft.
So you almost drowned.
I almost drowned.
So you came out, and I remember you telling me this story. I want to go home, and Tom said, there isn't any going home.
Yeah, well, when we pulled off to get the boat turned over and that, they couldn't have gotten an helicopter in. And I'm lucky because I think if I would have flown out, I would have never done it again.
So you think that was a turning point in your life, that had you not got back in that raft, you and I might not be sitting here talking today.
No.
Matter of fact, you might not. Now, were you married at that time?
No.
So you might not be married today.
Yep.
All the things that have come out of your outdoor adventures came from that one decision in your life.
Yep.
And it came from also a Tom Whitaker sitting there talking you through this and saying, you know what, you're going to make it. And then you've told me this many, many times, but kind of your motto is what?
Boy, my heart is saying, fear is fun.
Fear is fun. And would you help us understand why is that? Because most of us don't watch scary movies and think they're fun.
Well, you know, it all depends on how you look at the word fear.
Okay.
If you let fear dictate what you do, you're not going to do a whole lot.
Okay.
But yet, you look at it as fun, you're going to try and do fear.
So you're going to try to take the challenges on that fear brings.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm going to show a picture here next of what I would consider, I want to get through this. This is you getting ready to head to Everest.
Yep.
So, to me, that's a big concern. Is you're going up on the tallest mountain on the earth, 29,028 feet. Mobility is an issue. You know the stories from Everest. Matter of fact, you went up and went 98.
Yeah.
2 years before, it was one of the biggest unfortunate death tolls on Everest and climbing history there. Some of the best climbers in the world couldn't make it. But you guys are going up with C.W. Hogs.
Yeah.
So tell me how that kind of came to fruition.
Well, again, Tom, he wanted to be the first disabled climber to climb Everest. And he tried twice before and didn't make it. So he thought third time he'd ask some of his hog friends to join him and turn it into a hog party. And that might help him get him to make it to the top.
So Tom's bringing all these disabled people with him and trying to push him to the top.
Yep.
Okay, so I know mobility's a problem with you, and we've got to move through this a little bit, but you're sitting in a basket there, and I don't know, are you, is one of the Sherpas carrying you right now? Or?
Yeah, I'm on his head.
So Kyle had been up on, they got up part of the way up Everest, and you guys were riding ponies, right?
Yeah, horses.
They were riding horses, and they were down these little tiny thin trails. And one of them about throws you off, right?
Yep. He did throw me off.
He did throw you off. Yeah. And so you guys were at a point where if they can't figure out how to get you up Everest, you're coming back down.
I'm coming home.
So you fly all the way over to Nepal to go to this, and then you get there and you may not even be able to go any farther. Yep. All right. So you got the and I love these guys who have just come into your life. So you've got Tom Whitaker as one, but you got this turning point again, and I think this is so true for all of us, that we all have people that come up at these turning points in our lives, and they really have a chance to make a big impact. And so it's at this point you're not going to get a go, and you have Sherpas who are leading the charge, and how do they help you out?
They came up with a basket system that normally baskets carry gear and, supplies, never human, unless they're just basket.
Well, how do they carry them?
They break them in half and put them in the basket.
So if a guy dies, they'll break him in half, put him on a basket, and bring him down if they bring him down. Yeah. But how do they carry the baskets? On
their forehead.
So they carry their baskets on their forehead. Now, how much do you weigh, Kyle?
Well, at that time I weighed about 125.
So they're carrying 125 pounds of Kyle on the top of their head, or on their foreheads. Yep. And are you strapped in or not?
I have a climbing belt that is wrapped around 2 pieces of wood, and that is what holding me into the basket.
So would it be better for you to be home with Mom and Dad?
Yeah,
it would, huh?
No, I wouldn't give up. I wouldn't give up that opportunity to do that.
Okay. So I know you guys are up there walking, and one of the conditions, at least with the CP that you have, is that you get spastic. And the more excited you get, the more your muscles charge, and then sooner or later they got to let go.
Yep.
So could you kind of just rehash the story a little bit? I know you guys are up several thousand feet. You're on a little tiny trail right next to the edge. You kind of explain what happens.
Well, yeah, all that happened, and I had not had a good day, and I was tighter than ever. And he took a step that I didn't expect, and I just had to let go. And when I let go, he stubbed a toe, and I thought we were both going down. We both made a big sigh, and I told him I wouldn't do it again. And when I felt myself getting that way, I just asked to be let down, and I had a special pair of knee pads made, and I'd walk it out rather than try to throw us off the cliff.
Well, you could have done a 10 or 12,000 foot plunge right there.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so here you guys are again going up, and you can see right here some of the baskets where a guy is carrying stuff on his head, and there's the custom knee pads that you've had made to crawl along the way. How did the altitude affect you up there? There's a piece right up Everest that's kind of a rougher picture.
Yeah.
That's you on Kilimanjaro, so I want to postpone that a little bit. But how did the altitude stuff up there affect you?
It didn't affect me like it did the other people, because Tom told me what to do before I left. So the month before I left, I did a workout, and when I worked out, I put a straw in my mouth and notes on my nose. And so the only oxygen that I took in was through that little straw, and that helped.
Wow. So you put nose plugs on, you put a straw in your mouth, and you worked out for a month trying to get ready for altitude.
Yep.
So you get up there, you spend your time at base camp. Tom goes for his summit. Does he make it?
He does.
So he is the first. So you are part of history, where you are there for the first successful summit of a disabled person climbing Everest.
Yep.
How'd that make you feel?
I still can't talk, just thinking about what.
It's still very emotional for you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Looking at this, and it just brings back all of it, what they did to make it happen,
So one, you've got what they did to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
The two, then you took the challenge. So it's a two-part piece, correct?
Yeah.
It's a two-part piece, and I think, one of the things I talk a lot about when I go out and speak is I know the cure for cancer is sitting in the mind of a 5-year-old child somewhere. Now the question is, and you think about how many people are impacted by cancer in our country.
No.
It's horrendous. But you think about how long is it going to be before someone helps unlock that mystery in that child's mind, and look at the benefits that's come out of you making that challenge up Everest. And we go back to that day at that party when you could have just said, I'm not signing, and how much different your life would be. And yet for all these kids that we as educators work with, how many opportunities we have to work with children like that, disabled or not. I mean, everybody's facing challenges every day. What kind of message would you leave with teachers who are working with kids every day, and how they might, face the challenge that a child is dealing with that day?
Wow, not hard, because each of them are different, and you never know what they're thinking or what is in the mind of a child until you tap it. And if you don't ever tap it, how will you ever know?
So we never do know what's in the mind of a child until we work to tap that energy and that brilliance in it.
Yep.
And which is a trip. We can go back to Mrs. Lufer and thank her in your case for being that pioneer in that community to say, there's something special in this young man. And so if you had a chance to talk to her today, what would you tell her, you think?
So, big thank you and a hug.
A big thank you and a hug, and I think that's a great story. I want to jump forward a little bit because we want to make sure we got time to get in your book and answer some questions. But time passes, and I know you've done a lot of things. You've been you ski, you lead whitewater raft trips. You've done scuba. I mean, just all kinds of things that are out there. And I know one of the things that you and I talked about for a long time was making a trip to Kilimanjaro. And you really wanted to have more opportunity to direct the climb and to really make sure you were climbing more this time. So you went to Kili when?
2008.
2008, so you're a little older.
Yep.
And I know you'd had some medical problems and you're having to work through them. So now you've got a wife, you've got 3 wonderful kids, you live in a great community that, embraces you and you're a part of it. Why go to Kili? You've already proven yourself on Everest.
Well, Everest, I got the base camp. Kilimanjaro, I wanted to get to the top. Just to feel what it feels like to get to the top of something. I knew Everest, no way I could do that. But Tom, before we left Everest, he said, Kilimanjaro is your mountain. It's a walk up. You get in the shape you are now, it's a walk up for you, no problem.
Okay.
So he put the seed, and I had to plant it.
Okay, so he planted the seed in your mind, and it's 20 years later.
Yep.
And so you're going to Kilimanjaro. Kind of explain the picture here, what we've got, what we're looking at.
Well, the device that we use was called a hippocam, and a hippocam is a three-wheel trike, and it's used to take people across sandy beaches.
Okay.
Not up
mountains.
Not up mountains. So it was like a champ. It did whatever it needed to do to get us up to about 17,800 feet, and then people started getting sick.
Okay, so you're going up 17,800 feet. One of the problems with mountain climbing is getting up too quick,
Yep.
and you can get sick, really badly sick. And unfortunately, that's what started happening, not to you, but to your porters.
Yeah, our support team, normally what happens is they stay Keeble, and only the guides and their people go up and down in the same day. We wanted to go up, camp in the cone, and then make our bed after that.
Okay, so where's this camp at right here we're looking at?
That's about 16,000 feet.
You're about 16,000 feet. You saw death on Everest. I know you talked about a guy had died up there. And can you tell me a little bit about what that story was, so you understand the relevancy of making sure people are safe on the mountain?
Yep. He was the guide. He was guide to American who wanted to run on Mount Chapter.
So they're going up another mountain. Okay.
To make a record. And they got the record, but the guide got edema and died.
So he got cerebral edema and died. And then what? You said something about they wanted to bring the body down. So can you explain that a little bit?
Well, because the two guys wanted the record, when the support team got to them, they made the two climbers break the guide in half and top him down.
Wow. So you got these two guys that climbed, they had to break the body in half and stick it in a body bag and bring it back down. Wow. Now I'm looking over here, I just got a note, and I want to go through this real quick as we're going through it. It says, Michelle said, how are you received in other countries? Are they surprised that you have CP and are climbing mountains, or does it appear somewhat routine for them? In other words, have they seen climbers with CP or some other disabilities, or are you guys just so different? Which is a great question. Then I want to follow up, if you guys are different, what type of message are you leaving to educate the people in those countries?
At first, we got a mixed response. We had people applauding us going up the mountain, and then we had people saying, oh, you guys shouldn't be here, you're going to die, you're going to give a bad name, you're going to, you know, so ever we had a mix, you know, and my case, the left hand is considered the dirty hand.
The left hand is considered the dirty hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the only hand I have.
That's the only hand that you can use.
To work with, and they saw that and didn't think nothing more of it. So
did they think, was the stereotype then bad that you were there, or it was?
Oh no, they loved it. The people that worked with us, they were glad we were there.
Okay, what about Killy?
Kilimanjaro, I think it was a whole different atmosphere. They were glad we were there because we paid them money, but they didn't have the same enthusiasm that Everest Sherpa had.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted us to make it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, and I think this is an excellent question because it would be it'd be a real interesting study just to see in those countries as well how disabled people are received in their schools and what the relationship between able-bodied and disabled people are as compared to here. And I mean, I know a lot of the stories, but do you have any that you could share?
oh, the kids. I saw some of the paths that they had to walk just to make it to school, and there would been no way a disabled individual would have been able. They would have had to live in, you know, Kathmandu or, you know, populated. They couldn't have lived out on the trail.
Okay. So let's go on, and you got here at 16,500 feet. You're nearing the top. Your guides are feeling sick. You're concerned of cerebral edema. You've seen guys die on Everest. There was another person that had went and tried to reclaim an artifact on Everest and almost died on the top of the mountain that you told me about. So you understand the severity of the situation. But this is your heart's desire. I mean, you're how far from the top?
We're 2,300 feet.
So you're 2,300 feet, which isn't a cakewalk. I mean, there's an effort there.
Yeah, it was the steeper part of the climb.
But you can see it.
Oh, yeah, we can see it.
And so you're left with, I stay and I put people's lives at risk, or I come back home.
Yeah.
And we know the stories from a lot of climbers. A lot of climbers do put people's lives at risk. And we see stories like this, and they don't turn out very well. And so, and there was a financial layout for this trip that you put forth. So, why turn around?
I didn't want to, you know, if something happened worse, I couldn't have that on my conscience.
Okay. So do you have so you came back home, 2,300 feet from the top.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to go into the book, but as a climber, you're still a little hollow inside because you didn't make it.
Yep.
Are you planning another adventure?
Well, I would like to go back, yes. But, you know, just to say that I've been there and I got as far as I got, that is a story in itself. And I should be proud of that. But, you know, there's always that empty, you know, and I would like to go back, but I can also say I've been there, done that.
Well, I agree. You're my hero on that. I'd love to say I could go, and I haven't gone. I haven't done anything like that, so I think you should definitely be proud of it. And, you know, I think all these stories, Kyle, that, you know, all the life experiences from, you know, childhood, dealing with the stereotypes of a disability back in the late 60s, early 70s, you know, fighting through all the stuff with the mountain climbing, you know, meeting your wife, having a wonderful family that you've got. You've had a story inside of you for a long time. And, you know, it's eventually come out in your new book, Stare If You Dare, and that's one of the reasons we're here tonight, because I think it's a great piece for educators to look at. It's not written from, when you talked about writing this book, I thought you were going to come from the perspective of looking at it from able-bodied to disabled. You rocked my world because you didn't. And you went at it from the disabled and to the able-bodied. And so what was your motivation for this book?
Boy, I guess the long idea and try not to let anybody else do what I did.
So you didn't want people to have to struggle with what you've done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, when I when it first came to me, it was in the night, and I couldn't go to sleep until I got up and wrote and got on paper, and then finally, you know, I could. But
well, can you give us a short summary of the book?
It's about a boy. I don't know who it's really about, Mr. Wilpack or Tommy.
Okay.
Because Mr. Wilpack, he's the one who scared the boy. He was a boy, a little boy who, you know, he didn't know. He just wanted curious what was wrong with Mr. Wilpack, and instead of, you know, he went boof and scared the little boy to death.
So this is a story about really how you approach somebody with a disability and how you make friends and how easy it is for a person with a disability to sit back and never be involved.
Yeah.
And so
I was that way.
So you were Tommy.
Yeah.
So Tommy has to come up with a decision. There's kids out playing, they're doing things, and he's not being invited in the inner circle. And so Tommy can either step back and not.
He felt like he would.
And he felt like it. So that wasn't necessarily the case.
Well, he didn't know. He never experienced this before.
So you're challenging kids with disabilities to not necessarily wait for people to approach you, but you to approach them.
Yep.
Okay.
Well,
okay. And what's the message you want people to walk away from whenever they finish reading your book?
You know, it's during a big deal, you know, and
so staring a big deal. So if you're looking at a person with a disability, is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it all depends on how you react when you get caught. Okay, because I've caught people and I've heard it and seen everything, you know. I've seen parents pull their kid's arm off, telling them not polite to stare.
So you've had people look at you, stare at you, and then the real challenge is what happens after they get caught.
And a lot of them hurry and yank their head away, you know, trying to, oh, you didn't catch me, or, you know, or they're the ones that break their neck to take that last look, you know. And
so what do you want them to do? Are you saying it's okay if they stare, or are you?
It's okay if they're ready to say hi when they're caught, rather than try to shout or make them, you know.
So part of the book then is to educate people that it's okay to look at people who are different, but don't run away.
Yeah, don't run away, because that person they're staring at, like, what? Am I really that ugly, or really that scary, or not approachable?
So it brings up all those issues of self-confidence inside the person that's being stared at. And then are you also saying then for those who are being stared at that may be part of your responsibility is to go approach people as well?
You bet.
Okay.
You bet.
Okay. Well, I think those are great life lessons for all of us, and I want to open up a little bit of time for Alex. I see you and Michelle are online with us. Do you guys have any questions that you'd like to ask Kyle personally? If so, just go ahead and hit the talk button up there, and we'd like to have you jump in and join the conversation.
Hey, Kyle, it's Michelle. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. How are you?
My question was about visiting other countries as well. I have a nephew that's disabled, and he's from China. And so I was just wondering if he went back. I mean, so I know culturally they handle things differently in different places, even with respect to like making eye contact and that sort of thing. And so I'm wondering what sort of acceptable protocol in other countries as well? Like, do they stare at you? Do they always look away? Do they think it's rude? I mean, what is it like in other places?
When we would walk through the little villages on the way to Kilimanjaro.
Hey, Michelle, if you would turn your talk button off and then hop back on when he gets off, I think that'll take the echo out.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. Go ahead, Kyle.
When we walk through the villages going to Everest, all the little kids would come out and want to play with the wheelchairs and you know, it was all great and fun. We taken, you know, pencils and toothbrushes and things for the kids, and we knew we were going to get stared at because, you know, I don't think they saw people like us every day, so we just expected it and was eager to say hi and, you know, go about our way.
And Michelle, I'd like you to hop back on and answer this, but as part of your question for Kyle, how a person with a disability can prepare themselves for that experience, either domestically or as they travel abroad?
I think so. I mean, my nephew's still young, you know, so he hasn't, and he's also on the autistic spectrum, so his social interactions are, you know, he's still working on that a little bit. But I think for him it will be a skill that he'll have to learn when people do stare, you know, like how he interacts, how he opens it up, smiles, says hi, introduces himself, like whatever the situation is. But then there's this cultural piece on top of it also for him.
Okay. Well, that, you know, one of the things I think Kyle's book kind of addresses that a little bit in terms for a younger audience. But Kyle, if you were helping kids develop a toolkit that would really, all the stuff that you've learned, that, and let's focus on the staring part, because that is such a in your face, you have to deal with it right now, and you either deal with it by shirking away or by, in your book, you talked about you did it inappropriately. You screamed out and booed at the kid. But if you had to help the kid, and then you learn from that, but if you had to come back and give, you know, like 2 or 3 pointers that kids could use as tools, what would be things that you think you would tell them and that she could help maybe her nephew with down the road?
Wow. Not hard.
Well, how does Tommy address it in the book?
He just puts a smile on and goes head on. He goes into the group of kids and he just says hi, and that breaks the ice and they go and play. And so. But
he was encouraged by somebody to do that, right?
Yeah, Mr. Wilpack.
So there's a character in the book called Mr. Wilpack, and I'll kind of set this for you, Michelle. It's very much a situation like you were talking about where Tommy, the young kid you can see on the slideshow right now, is disabled, and he's out and about, and kids are staring at him, and our child is staring at him, and so instead of looking away or whatever else, Tommy turns at the kid and goes, boo, and scares the kid half to death. And then he's left with this situation about, I shouldn't have done that. And Mr. Wilpack talks to him about, you know, there are things that you can do to deal with people staring, and one of them is going to approach those kids and really work that out and saying hi and letting them know that you're okay. But I will say, Kyle, doesn't that take a lot of courage on the part of a young kid to go do that?
It takes a lot because, you know, kids can be real hurtful, and they're not willing to, you know, accept hi. It could really turn.
So as a parent or teacher, you really have a responsibility also to work with those kids to help them develop that self-confidence to go do those things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alex, Michelle, other questions you guys have? We got a few more minutes here. I'd love to give you a chance to talk to Kyle a little bit more. Okay, Sarah, did you have any questions that you wanted to ask beforehand? Let me give her a chance as well.
Let me turn my mic on. Oh, there's another question there, but no, one thing I thought was interesting is that I'm wondering how much, like, parents as well, in this kind of pushing children to, you know, accept those with disabilities and be a little braver in their approach, that often at younger ages, I feel like they inhibit the staring. It's frowned upon, which I think might give an impression that is not the case. It's not encouraging them to go meet and make new friends and learn new things. And I'm wondering if you've seen a change from, you were saying your parents said stay at home, if you've seen that change from how parents and adults, even teachers, kind of approach the issue.
And let's answer that about, have you seen a change culturally about how parents and teachers are approaching things as compared to what it was with you back in the late 60s, early 70s? And then Alex has a question that I want to finish up with.
I don't really know. I know now when they stare at me, I like what they see. They don't see a drawn-in person. They see a person who's out there doing things and trying to make a difference, rather than, you know, back then I would have my head down, no eye contact, and now, you know.
So whether society has changed or not, from your perspective in your part of the world, you're happy with who you are, and you're finally happy with what they're looking at.
Yeah.
And that's a good testimony, because there's a lot of able-bodied people that could learn from that lesson right there. I want to go on, and Michelle's saying thanks so much for sharing your story tonight. Alex has, hi Kyle, great to talk. Thank you for sharing. My mic doesn't work, but I'm curious your thoughts about developing leaders within the disabled community. A big part of your story is friends who push you to try new things. How important are teachers to developing those leadership characteristics? And we're going to close with that tonight.
Well, teachers can, well, they're with children, you know, a lot of the day, and if they can just spark something, and, you know, it can be as little as, you know, a pat on the back, or, hey, good job, or, I don't know how, what help.
But just those kind words every day, and I think I go back to Mrs. Alufern. Her story just stuck with me so much about how she looked, well, everybody else was looking at Kyle and saying, here's where he needs to go. He needs to be institutionalized. He needs to be this. He needs to be that. She was your bright and shining star that said, now hold on a minute. There's something more here. And she at least unlocked the door for one child who's making a difference in the world. And if the world had more Mrs. Lufers, it would be a better place.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of them out there. We just don't get to see them all. So.
Okay. Well, hey, I appreciate you being our guest tonight, Kyle, and I appreciate all those that were on with us tonight. And please share that this webinar, along with all of our other ones, are available at NNSTOY.org. We appreciate you guys being on. Great teaching force that we've got out there, and we look forward to our next visit. Thanks, Sarah, for turning all the knobs and making things work, and we'll catch everybody down the road.
Thank you.
Thank you.